know who I came to preach to today, but the word of the Lord to somebody today: stop funding your own oppression. Stop investing in your own demise. Stop spending money in the destruction of your own people.
It's a very interesting thing. Members of a community attacking other members of the community for, quote, platforming somebody who got into a jam and not even really wanting to find out, well, what was the story? What was the story from his perspective? And here I go again. I actually think that the root is an op. I think the root is an op. And somewhere in the background in the ownership is somebody who really is invested in making sure that the most negative scenarios about the Black community are published on a regular basis. And the fact that this publication was generated by a professor who is steeped in African American history, Henry Louis Gates, is pretty amazing. That's where the root originated from. As you can see now, those days are gone. Those days are absolutely gone. And I wanted to say, just as a preface here, that when we look at opinion pieces in communications, these are the types of pieces that anything goes, and everybody has a right to their opinion, as everybody knows. But what you find a lot of times is this is a very low level of journalism. It requires no expertise whatsoever. It requires an opinion, and then that's it. It doesn't really require anything. And for some reason at the root, I just want to point out that they have a particular fixation with Jonathan Majors, and it's very interesting. I would say that they have a fixation past what is the typical fixation that any publication would have with any one individual. But man, they keep writing about this guy, and it doesn't matter what he's doing, what's going on, or anything else. He is a source of interest at the root. And that interest, of course, wait for it. I know it's a surprise. That source is always negative. They can't stand John Majors at the root. So, as a lot of folks might know from my previous videos, I sat in on the John Majors trial. I suspected something was up because you see video of a man being chased down the street by his girlfriend. That video is all over the place on TMZ and everywhere else, and somehow he's getting prosecuted for an assault. And what it really came down to was the way he placed her in the back of a vehicle, back of an SUV. The whole case really came down to that piece of video of John Majors placing the ex-girlfriend in the back of an SUV, and for that, Alvin Bragg's office turned that moment into an assault, a misdemeanor assault, and a harassment charge, which typically would never find its way, I suspect, into a courtroom. You can't get any answers out of any of these offices when you ask questions like, how many misdemeanor assault cases do you actually bring to a courtroom? I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably zero, but I don't know that for a fact. I would guess very few, particularly in the county of New York, where the borough of New York and borough of Manhattan, where you are. New York City has a lot of people. So you would think that but at any rate, Majors' case was turned into an example of a case where I think they just wanted to use it, frankly, as a PR case to talk about an important topic, domestic violence, right? So you got this Hollywood actor who gets a lot of attention, and you can bring attention to an important issue through his case. I can actually see why that would be extremely valuable. Problem is, I think this was not the right case to bring, particularly when you have somebody's girlfriend chasing him down the street, block after block after block. That sure as hell doesn't look like he's the aggressor in the situation. Also, another fact that, of course, the media suppressed was that he called the police. Effectively, he called the police because he was concerned about the girlfriend. The police show up and arrest him, in the classic way that, speaking of Henry Louis Gates, he gets arrested at his home. Very strange situation. But at any rate, Jonathan Majors, of course, his career is put on hold when all of this happens 2 years ago. And were it not for his connection to the Marvel franchise, I'm not even sure we would be talking about him. But one of the reasons why we are talking about him is that he is extremely talented. There's just no doubt about that. And you're not going to see, I suspect you're not going to see the Root talk too much about that, but there is a reason why he keeps coming up. There's a reason why Sherry Shepherd interviewed him. There's a reason why he's on the Breakfast Club. And the reason is he is not an average talent. He is somebody that is extremely talented. You know, you see this in rock and roll all the time, particularly in that 70s period where everybody was on heroin and didn't matter what they did, who they beat up, whether or not they were in jail or anything else. They kept coming up in conversation, people, because because people were really talented. Either they can play the guitar really well or sing really well, and people are willing to look past some of their dumb behavior to look past that and say, well, wait a minute, this person is an extreme talent. I think that's part of the reason why Jonathan Majors is never completely out of the media. I also think that the other reason is that the Root is got this weird obsession with going after, quite frankly, straight black men. And actually they do a twofer a little bit in the other piece that I'm about to bring up, because they bring up Charlemagne. So they're sort of attacking Charlemagne for having Jonathan Majors on the Breakfast Club. And then they have the Sherry Shepherd. Of course, we're criticizing Sherry Shepherd because how dare Sherry Shepherd put Jonathan Majors on? And then we're criticizing Kiki Parker. So it's a very interesting thing. Members of a community attacking other members of the community for, quote, platforming somebody who got into a jam and not even really wanting to find out, well, what was the story? What was the story from his perspective? But I find the Root to be strange. You know, you're a black publication, but you spend an inordinate amount of time criticizing black people. Can anybody name another group of people or another publication that focuses on a specific minority community where they spend like a lot of time criticizing members of that community? I mean, I get traffic strategy. You know, I get negative anger. It attracts people to look at and read the content when you're doing something controversial. But in this environment, this is a particularly strange moment because we have sitting right in front of us in the White House probably the most anti-black president in modern history. And if I had to go back and guess, I mean, the next one that comes to mind really is Woodrow Wilson in terms of in your face racism. And the Root is spending all of its time talking about Jonathan Majors and Sherry Shepherd. Like, I just find it to be really sort of sad. I mean, like, just unbelievably crazy that this is what we're talking about, you know? And, you know, while you could say, well, wait a minute, you know, every publication has, you know, what they focus on and all that. And certainly this is not a conversation about who has the right to focus on whatever they want to focus on, because they have the right to focus on whatever they want to focus on. But it is really strange given the timing. You know, I'm just fascinated by all of it. Like, black folks don't believe that Jonathan Majors put in the work. What are you talking about? First of all, 40 million people. So how do you know that 40 million people don't believe anything or do believe something? Like, I mean, who knows? Like, why are you're looking at some stuff on social media and then you're coming to a conclusion. Okay, so there's nothing scientific about that. And I'm just fascinated by a platform, again, a platform that is dedicated supposedly to African American issues, black issues, that spends all this time negatively treating the very subjects that they purport to be covering. And again, if somebody can name a publication that does that, wow. But I've never been one to criticize the things that people focus on in terms of the strategy behind the business model, because in fact, the bills do have to get paid. But it is interesting, you know, given the history of the Root, where they have ended up. And the obsession around John Majors is like really actually kind of comical to me at this point. But at any rate, I just wanted to throw that down real fast before I get into something else. It's a lot deeper than this. This is Lauren Burke, and I will see you soon.
I refuse to put my money in any place that makes the thief wealthy. I refuse any car that's going to make an immigrant who doesn't even pay taxes one of the wealthiest men in the nation. I refuse. I don't know who I came to preach to today, but the word of the Lord to somebody today: stop funding your own oppression. Stop investing in your own demise. Stop spending money in the destruction of your own people.